Taking a while. There we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Native Speakerism Undone. It's a live series where we get to talk with ELT professionals who kind of tend to take a stance against native speakerism in general. And today I'm joined by Jen Diaz-Green. Hello, Jen. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Mary. It's lovely to be here. Such an honor.
Yes, and Jen, just a little backstory. Jen and I met at ELT Ireland, where she witnessed my first ever talk on native speakerism live there and then, where I shared my backstory about how I came to talk about this very important topic. And it was really encouraging for me to see you in the audience, and you came to speak to me afterwards. I remember this very clearly because, this was my first actual response to, if people were actually witnessing this, whatever I was talking about, right? And we'll go more into the details now. And it wasn't a big crowd, but I thought about maybe 30 people were in the room. And as I was talking, I saw like a wave of nodding heads. And I thought, oh, I am onto something here, because I hadn't, how long was it? Maybe 3 years now, a bit less, 2.5 years ago, probably. And it was
About
really
that, yeah.
eye-opening to me that I wasn't the only one perceiving all this. And thank you for being one of those people who just came up to me and said, you totally related with this story.
Yeah, it was refreshing to hear it, and going, oh my God, yeah, someone's talking about this. So that's why I love listening to you, and I love encouraging you because someone has to do it. So I'm
It,
I'm
it is
so
a
honored.
relevant it is a relevant topic in our industry, let's put it this way.
It
And
is. It is.
yeah, and to introduce our topic, we're going to be talking about the privilege of sounding native. And you suggested I put a question mark there on our title. Why is that, Jen? Can you tell me a little bit about your story?
Because I want to, I want to, discuss the question whether it is relevant and it is a privilege to sound native or not, and what is sounding native anyway. There's so many accents around the English speaking world, and so many accents in the whole world, and I'm like, it is. I was thinking about it. It's like our uh, birthmarks and scars and stretch marks, and it's what makes us individual and human and ourselves, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I didn't always think that this way. When I trained to be a teacher back in Argentina, I studied for 3 years phonetics and what they used to call RP. We had this dictionary and we had to sound exactly like that. And I remember not being able to sound exactly like that and being really frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first few years being here, every time I would speak with someone and someone says, so where are you from? I would be so annoyed going, oh my God.
Here it is again. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it was funny when they said, "Are you French?" And then I was like, "Okay, maybe it's not my accent that they are." But I stopped caring because I really think it's. I suppose when you grow a bit older and you get a bit more confident, you stop caring about what
Yes,
other
yes,
people
and I
think.
think you kind of get to like build this thicker skin around this subject because I recently have, having these conversations, I recently defined it as when you get that question of where are you from, I feel like it's almost like a microaggression because normally it comes right after someone saying, what do you do? I'm an English teacher. Oh, where from? And the expectation there, it's like this loaded question of expecting an English speaking country's name followed
Mm,
right after, right? And you're like,
yeah,
that's not really, the case, or you feel like you're not going to meet that expectation, and you feel something
yeah,
is off there. But you
correct.
mentioned when we messaged back and forth, there was a different perception that you had of what it would be like to be teaching English, or how people would relate to you, uh, or how you considered yourself. You said I had more of an imposter syndrome, right, when you were in Argentina. And why was that? Why did you have this imposter syndrome? Was it because of you not being able to mimic exactly the RP that was being taught? Was it for other reasons? What would you say?
Well, I suppose I was younger. I was younger, and I was nervous, and it was the start of my career. But and also because, but at the same time, what happens, and I've been thinking about this over the last few days. What happens in Argentina is totally different to what happens in Europe, where it is kind of a little bit easier to get native teachers, let's say.
Yeah.
Sorry, the sun is shining on me.
It's okay. You look like there's a
Beautifully.
halo about you.
I didn't expect that in Ireland that much, but anyway, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And but funny about the word imposter, because when I came here, I never expected to teach English. Like, I didn't come here to teach English. I came here after college and after working for a while as a way to what I wanted to do was immerse myself in the language and be able to um, acquire that spontaneity and that fluency that you don't, well, I couldn't get back at home, even from
Mhm.
years and years of studying. And so I thought, okay, I'll be here for a while and get that. And it took me about 4 years until I applied for an English language teaching position.
Wow.
I didn't. I thought it was impossible. Like, I didn't
Mhm.
think it was going to be difficult, or no, I didn't even try. And once I actually saw this ad after finishing the first year of my master's, and I went, oh, maybe I can do this. And it was with ISI, and that's the rest is history, because I started teaching there, and it's been about 18 years now.
Mhm.
But it's imposter. I I've grown to love being an imposter. I've grown to enjoy the feeling, because I realized after years. So I did academic management in ISI for 15 years, and the moments when I didn't feel an imposter anymore was the moments I realized I wasn't learning anymore. I wasn't outside my comfort zone, and I was like really comfortable, and I'm like, oh, it kind of is a little bit boring. And when I was promoted about 6 months ago as school director, I got it again, and I was like, oh my god, okay.
Yeah.
And it felt again that I was learning, and so yeah, I
I feel
totally
like that
love
really
it.
helps. I like what you said, and congratulations on your role there. And I think it is a very big achievement, because coming from countries where native speakerism is very present, you know that people are admired more, or they are privileged because they come from English speaking countries, and you mentioned they are seen as gods, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, oh my gosh, we have a native speaker teacher here. So to go from that to the realization of, okay, I can totally benefit from this. I can uh, take a role that is important, and in the English speaking world, it's very enlightening. I feel though I had that same realization when I went through a lot of formation, and then I, like you said, it was a moment of, okay, I don't need to be learn. Yeah, you can always learn more and study more. I'm not saying you have arrived to a point where you're not teachable because you know everything. No, but it's just the realization that, okay, I understand everything I should be able to understand. I can do my job well. And that's when I started questioning this bias as well, and thinking, okay, wait a minute. But it's not that you have to have all that, wouldn't you say, to come to that realization? I feel like I wish someone had told me sooner that, even with, because I'm in Italy, we didn't mention you're in Dublin, you're in Ireland, and it still gets seen as something, you feel like, you're quite there, but even with all the things you have done, probably at least in Italy, you're not there yet,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
something that you can't obviously aspire to change about yourself, which is your
Mm,
identity or your past.
totally,
So you're
totally.
there saying, okay, this is forever going. I'm always going to be an Armenian. Always going to, not have completed my secondary education in English speaking country, which is very important in Italy, by the way, because that's what defines a native speaker. And you have now dual citizenship. You have dual nationality. Has that changed anything about your, let's say, confidence or how people perceive you?
Um, No, not really. No, so I always had the European nationality anyway. So recently I became Irish, which I'm so honored about. And but no, what I think what made a difference was I think it was an attitude of ex- exploring the different possibilities that I had, and trying different things, and realizing that I could do it, and for people around me to realize that I could do it. For example, I'll tell you a story. I was about maybe 6 months in ISI. I had been teaching Japanese students mostly at the start of my employment in ISI.
Yeah.
And when that foundation course finished, then I moved on to covering classes. So I was like back and forth with adults and whatever. And the academic manager said to me, I have a new class for you, but I have to talk to you about it because they are all Brazilians. And so I really think that you can do this, and I want you there, but I need to warn you that if anyone complains about you being from Argentina, then I'll have to, move you or let you go. Um, and I wasn't, maybe nowadays, if I said that to a teacher, they'd be horrified, and that's what I love about how the industry evolved. But and I wouldn't say to a teacher nowadays anyway, but I was totally fine with that. I was like, this was about 18 years ago, and I was like, fair enough, let's do it, and so it's that attitude of, I'm going to give it a try, and I'm going to enjoy it, and if anyone complains, I'll go, and of course no one complained because they loved it. I just taught them, and they progressed, and they learned, and they felt motivated, and I'm not saying of course, because someone could have, but they only complained about 3 months later when I was moved to another class, and they were, no, we want Jen. So this moment kind of made me realize I actually can do it, and made the academic manager realize actually it's not a big thing, and so I'm totally,
Yes, well
I love that
inserted. Let's say
attitude.
you had that. I mean, even though if someone had said that to me, I probably would have gone with a lot of fear into the classroom, thinking, okay, something's going to happen here that's not going to be. I've never had a complaint myself, but I did have a lot of recruiters or former employers that would say, just don't mention where you're from,
Yes.
or
Mhm.
don't, they really, I was privileged enough to be hired based off my native speaker like accent, and I was hired over the phone. I was hired without any credentials even,
Wow.
so I have benefited from it. I'm the first person to admit that. But then when I went on to more formal training, I thought, okay, this is going to advance my career to another level, which was in some cases the case, and in others no, it didn't work that way. But I feel like now, and I recently have received phone calls of, oh, would you like to teach it? But by the way, where are you from? Because our customers or our students would like, I just say, okay, you need to educate your clients, you need to educate your
Mm, mm,
customers,
mm.
because that
Yeah.
is not this speaking English with the right type of accent, sounding like a native speaker, is not enough to get you a job. And then
Mm.
discriminating
Oh,
local teachers like Italian, you never find, I think you would never find it. To my experience, I haven't found, I've been teaching for 14 years now in Italy, someone in an international, let's say, field or an environment here in Italy who is Italian, in fact, teaching English. It just either you
oh,
must have the
wow.
right nationality, the right passport. So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you have these two experiences as well, first living in Argentina and then in Ireland. I feel like the discriminatory practice is more present in non-English speaking countries sometimes, rather than the opposite. Like,
Yeah,
wouldn't you
I
say?
actually would say that. I actually would agree. And but
There's
I
an
did feel
aura
that,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, but I did get a few calls, at the start of my career here, when I got a few phone calls of people getting my CV and going, "Your CV is a little bit confusing. Where are you from?" And then when I said Argentina, they would go, "Okay, you know, sorry," but I was like, "Sure, whatever, fair enough."
It's
It
strange
was,
how we
it was,
accepted that, right, as a
yeah,
normality. I remember myself being like that, and then the recent time I was like, "You're not allowed to ask me that question,"
yeah, 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 yeah.
and then
I
then they would be
suppose,
apologetic about it.
yeah, I think I think people wouldn't do it today. This was kind of a long time ago. The funny thing was that it took very short time for me to move on from being a teacher to being an academic manager, and being on the other side and being the recruiter. And then so at first I was nervous, and I was like, okay, what should I do here? When you are an academic manager, um, you have to consider the teachers, but you have to consider the students and their wants and needs and desires. And then you have to think about the marketing team in the school, and the agents where the students are coming from, the parents of the students. And so it's a little bit difficult sometimes to juggle everything. But I think more and more people are becoming more open to this, because we are showing them that it's what I love about a mixed staff room with different nationalities is the wonderful mix of strengths and different expertise that we bring to the staff room and to the equation. And I absolutely love that, and everyone loves it too. So I find that I also find that rather post-COVID, people have been a bit more open-minded. I think it's brought about another layer of openness to possibilities, and I love that. I love that.
I love that too, actually. You mentioned, the staff room. So, and it is, I agree with everything you said, even though I know for a fact it's not the same everywhere. Like, I know
Mm.
that I've been to Ireland a couple of times. My sister works there too. And I know the reality there of private language schools is very much more open, let's put it this way, to non-native English speaking teachers. And I hate defining ourselves that way, because I really don't think there should be this dichotomy between native speakers and non-native. But this is where we have come to, right? So I say that because the situation is that we witness unequal salaries in certain countries, like in Southeast Asia. People who even have more Anglo-Saxon names receive more pay. This is the reality of what we need to be talking not only about our own reality, but like what happens outside of these outside of our own reality. So I actually had, when I was doing a little research on the topic that we're discussing today, I went on to see, okay, I'm going to look for some quotes on this by, I don't know, someone. A lot of talk has been produced and made and written on this, and then I actually found my own article in the midst of it all, which
Nice.
I thank EL Gazette for publishing it. And it says foreign English teachers are asked to conceal their identities and change their names to American and British sounding ones. And I was one of these people, as this seems to be. They seem to be better language models, and they embody this superior Anglo-Saxon culture, which seemingly is more appreciated by all. And I'm glad that, even on LinkedIn, when I'm quite active now, I get these people saying, well, that's not true. And we are very well perceived. And I feel that we can't just live in our own little bubble. Sometimes we have to be aware, and normally those people who are aware are people who have lived in different contexts, maybe, or seen
Yeah.
this happen. So what I want to say to you, and I want to ask you, you do obviously empower like your staff, or when you get to know someone who is not from an English speaking country, do you recognize that kind of imposter syndrome in the applicants, and what do you do to to kind of, be on their side so that they do not feel like you have felt in the past yourself? Is
Yeah,
there anything you do about that?
I um I just I to begin with, I want to say I just I love seeing um I, I love seeing myself in them, and I love connecting with them. And me being from Argentina, I just reassure them straight away that this is not, we're in this together, kind of thing. And the uh, I think that speaks louder than any kind of anything that I can say. But I'm there for them, and I don't make any distinction. Um, and if I can't praise them for anything that I see in there, what I love about teachers who are non-native teachers, and I'm going to use the expression, even though I have my academic manager Billy, he always says, listen, you can't use that, that's that. I'm like, Billy, I am a non-native teacher, and so I am so entitled to using this because I own the expression and I actually love it. But for my own self, because I'm like, it's lovely, it's beautiful. I am that. But I feel that people who come from different countries, their level of expertise is so huge because they went in depth researching the language and studying the language for years and years. The level of commitment that someone has to have for having studied, and the investment of time and money studying for 4 years rather than 1 month, is huge. It's huge. And so just for that fact alone, and I do love the discussions that come about, the in-depth, grammar questions that come up in the staff room, and I go, I feel the passion and I encourage it, and I think that that's what they bring. And I also have to say, that extra little bit of work that we do because we feel a little bit less, that we have to measure up.
Yes, we
I,
feel lesser than generally.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but I'm. It's a drive, and I love that. Even though I don't agree with it because I don't think it's necessary. I did it myself, and I still do it. And I think it doesn't. Um, I think it makes us go places, and so I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a choice, and I love that choice.
I love what you said. I couldn't have said it better myself. I feel that it's empowering. It's like you take the power back and say, okay, I'm going to, why shouldn't I say? Because it is discriminatory to select teachers based off of that. But the reality of the matter is that that happens so frequently, and to not speak about it and to not bring it up, I think, is doing a disservice to the
Yeah.
category of teachers, both native and non-native, right? Because people need to perceive that there is a flaw in the system. Something has been disrupted if we are trying to feel or trying to say that one is better than the other, or one knows better because I get so many people say you can never take something, this cultural thing that native speakers have of having lived in the country, having spoken it since with their families since they were. Well, not everyone is becomes a teacher naturally just because they speak a language. I feel that a lot
Absolutely.
of even professional teachers doubt this. They feel that they are lesser than simply because they weren't speaking English since the age of 2, and so therefore they can never be better than or equal to or all these other things that somehow I don't know, this inner troll gets into our heads and starts saying all these very negative things about ourselves, right? And granted, you can start learning a language well into your adulthood and still be, more perceptive and understand the rules of the language and speak it much better than anyone who has, simply been talking it without even, without the actual awareness, right? And I say that because I feel that it's common sense, but common sense is not so common, right? Because not many people realize this, that if you dedicate 4 years, as you were mentioning, studying actively and proactively and trying to reach a level of standard that is okay to go into the classroom, and the methodology and the approach, and what problems might arise, and above that, on top of that, you get a CELTA, a Delta, any type of teacher qualification, like you are equipped. I don't want to say better equipped, because native speakers can have that as well. But I just don't understand how countries also in Europe, and we've had a lot of professionals who were talking in the Native Speakerism Undone series who mentioned this, that still don't get that extra credit for having done all these extra things, right? And it's so demotivating, and many people really abandon, they have this defeatist attitude, and then they abandon the field altogether. And I know a lot of people have done that and moved to another career simply because they did not feel accepted.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's a very, I think, question of identity sometimes that comes into place there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is definitely shifting, and and we are educating people even through the work that we do. You're educating people through all these conversations that you're having, but I think that people are who are passionate about what they do and they persist, they get there, and then we're teaching people. I remember say I get complaints from students, and I'm like, oh, they say I prefer a native teacher. I try to bring about the conversation and explain the background of teachers who are not native teachers, but then I also trick them a little bit. Okay.
Oh,
And the
tell
way
me.
the way I trick them is it's it's just to give them a flavor. So I go, listen, I totally understand where you're coming from. If you're not getting what I'm trying to say, listen, I'm going to move you to another class, but next week I can't move you this week, or so I give them a little bit of time for them to experience that class and that teacher, because a lot of them kind of react quite soon, as soon as they realize this, and sure enough, by the end of the week, some of them come to me and say, I prefer to stay. I want to stay. And I go, yes, okay.
Yes.
If they don't, I move them to the other class. But, and in fairness, some of them prefer the other class, and it's totally fine. Some of them come back to me and go, can I move back? And so these are all the little things that we do. And I'm not a fighter. I am not a fighter for, it's not my nature, but I do allow for, especially in the position that I'm in, where I have to consider everyone's
Best
desires
interest.
and
Yeah.
interests,
Opinion.
and I don't it's not my intention to fight, but it is my intention to show people. I have a story in which, and I think I was telling you this story, that I had a class where two teachers were sharing, and one was Irish, and the girl was Polish, I think she was, and the students were complaining that they only wanted him, because he was native, and that was the reason they complained, and so I was, trying to explain it to them. They were not getting it, and one day one of them was sick, and so I covered the class. And so I taught them for the 3 hours. And then, like about 10 minutes before the class, I said, listen, so just because we're here, let's have a conversation about, your complaint. This was a full class complaint, some of those. And they were like, yeah, no, not native and whatever. And I said, but listen, did you learn today? Yes, yeah, it was a great class. And we And I was like, and I'm not native. And they were like, what? I said, I'm from Argentina. And they were like, oh.
Oh.
And I went, and one of them said, actually, yeah, I know what you did there. And I'm like, yes, listen, if you have a complaint, it's totally fair enough. And I want you to be happy. And I want you to have the right, methodology for the classes that you paid for. And I really want to do that. But let's have a proper conversation about this. It's not, the problem is not the place where this person was from or was born, is maybe the methodology, the pace of the class, the kind of materials.
There can be a variety of reasons. You're totally
Let's
right.
exactly.
But
Let's
let's
talk
not
about that.
attribute everything to the person's origin or the person's
Exactly.
nationality.
Exactly.
There
Yeah,
can be,
yeah.
XYZ reasons why you're not okay with one teacher and you find yourself better with the other, and that's totally okay. It's that doesn't come into the thing of you're discriminating against someone. But it does come when everything that's wrong in something, you attribute it to their
Exactly.
nationality and background.
Exactly. And that's the conversation that I wanted to have. And I say, I'll have this conversation forever. And let's talk about methodology. Let's talk about lesson planning, preparation. Let's talk about materials, but let's not attribute this. And it was a different conversation. And they were all like, oh my God. So that's where those are the lovely little moments when I go, we're making a difference. We're making a difference, and it is working. So I do, and I love how open everyone has been to the changes, and it actually works. But we still need to educate people. I think it comes from a little bit of ignorance. I hate using the word, but it comes from the fact that people don't know fully where these teachers are coming from.
And you need to be restless with this cause. I think that it comes up on so many different levels, whether it's with a group of students, whether it's with a peer, whether it's with another non-native teacher or a native, they all often arise. Like I don't often go looking for material, but even chatting to friends sometimes, even in another language, it arises with, okay, wait a minute, let's kind of dismantle this perception or this belief that you might have. And I cannot thank you enough for I think confidence plays a very big part here, because you really have to be confident enough in your person, in your professionalism, let's put it this way, to just come out and say, but I'm not a native speaker, because some people would think, I'm going to fake it till I make it, or I can sound like someone, or I shouldn't say it because I would not, I would probably lose a couple of, their favoritism, let's put it this way, from on behalf of our students. But it's not so. I think it empowers them as well, because the majority of the students learning, English as a second language, they are non-native speakers themselves. And so how empowering it must be for them to think they could one day be teaching this language, right? There is no limit to the learning of it and everything like that. I wish more people would do what you do instead of, because I see it happen a lot where they conceal their identities, or they don't say, or they go about, I'm going to teach you how to speak like a native speaker, and they're not native speakers themselves. Yeah. Why are you perpetuating this message that is the end goal, when it's all about intelligibility and all things?
No, and I've been privileged to be in a position where I could do that. That moment when I was teaching that class, I knew that I was going to be able to,
shift their mind.
Change their perception. And the fact that I wasn't a native teacher was going to provide that, and as I was saying, it speaks bigger than words when that's. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. Did you learn? Was it a good class? Yeah. We loved it. Okay,
that is great. Exactly.
it works.
And you use your identity to that advantage, like you said. Sometimes, often you don't even have to have a conversation when you just go, I'm Argentinian or I'm from Argentina, and
Mhm.
immediately the applicant or the teacher that is working for you ultimately feels recognized and heard
Mhm.
and understood, and so
Totally.
many different things, not the other way around. Let's put it this way.
You know
Okay,
what
and
I also
yeah,
loved? I'm going to tell you one last story, which is
yes.
and this was the beginning of the career. My career here in Ireland was when I went to. I remember the academic manager in ISI sent me to ASILS, which was the entity that was going to validate, or rather say, this degree that I did in Argentina is valid and whatever. And I went
Mhm.
into ASILS, and I was so nervous. I went with my degree, and I went, who am I going to meet here? And I met Jim Ferguson, who is, who met me there and said, "You're from Argentina." Oh my God, and he signed the letter straight away. And he said, "I worked in Argentina and I know how rigorous and how hardworking you all are there, because it's a full degree." He knew exactly what I was talking about, and instantly I went, "Oh my God, okay." I didn't have to go explaining anything. So um, it was a series of really,
Mhm.
really interesting people that I met along the way that kind of helped. I didn't have to go explaining, and he went straight away signing the papers and going, this is a
Yes.
valid, and a lot of other people. Like, in fairness, I never I never felt discriminated fully. I mean, maybe I should have, marked a few, but I felt so welcome. I felt so welcome.
Mhm.
I do feel really grateful. My bosses were really incredible as well when you know, as my career went along. They empowered me, and they saw that I could bring benefit and service to the company, that I was willing to um, work really hard and
Yes.
provide everything that. But yeah, so I encourage anyone in this career and in this profession to persist and to continue and keep going, because um, if you encounter those kind of moments of discrimination, it's not the norm. It's not really. And I remember talking to a couple of teachers this summer, and the group leaders in the summer camp complained about the Spanish teachers and whatever. And I said to them, "Listen, we've had these complaints, and it's not probably going to be the last complaint that you're
Mhm.
ever going to experience, but keep going. This is a wonderful profession. You're doing so well. Keep working hard, and don't get demotivated, because it's not um
Yes,
uh,
not everyone thinks that, or it's not going to be
exactly.
yeah.
Don't feel disheartened. Keep
Mhm.
going. As you're saying, a lot of people who left the industry because of that. And I'm like, I've been in Ireland for 23 years. I don't know. I didn't. Maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I
Mhm.
never
I'm
experienced
so
it.
glad. I mean, I'm so happy when I learn about that reality, because my reality is totally different. I think that's why this gives me like fuel for these live talks and this series and everything, because for me it's like on a daily basis. This is
Mm,
always something that comes up, and now everyone who knows me, even where I work, they know that I stand against it so much, as like even before the statement comes out or something that could be offensive to me, it's still there, but they're looking at me while saying something that shouldn't be said,
yes.
and I feel like, okay, we're probably slowly getting there. I think some countries are a little bit behind in terms of, trying to make things equal, which they'll never be equal, because obviously there is bias not only in the ELT industry. In generally, people live off stereotypes of, their consideration of one nationality prevailing over the other. So obviously this goes on to other ideologies that people might have or might respect. So but what I tend to always say is that the ELT industry, so any educational industry, can't be a victim of this because we're supposed to know better. And so
mm,
when it happens amongst teachers and academics, it's where it hurts the most. It really hurts because the actual steps that person has taken, and you
yeah,
still don't want to see the benefit of giving them the job. And
mm,
I'm so glad that Ireland is. I've had other people tell me it's much open to
mm,
this, but it's an English speaking country,
mm,
right? And that's not what I'm going to have. By the way, let me remind the viewers that on the 17th I'm going to talk to Vincent Richard about, and he's from France, and he has a totally different story to the one we're hearing today. And that's what's, I think, important about this, because we're hearing from different perspectives, from different people with different nationalities living in different countries, and it just brings about that heightened awareness of, whoa, we have come far in certain sectors, in certain countries, but we have still a long way to go in others, and we have to
mm,
kind of knock down these things. And sometimes it's governments that
mm,
are,
mm,
implying that the teacher needs to be native speaker, and we have to dismantle that. Even though thinking about, oh, we're going to be revolutionary and change the government's opinion, it seems very big, but I think we have to make the right type of noise for this to be perceived as something alarming and
mm,
alert this is discriminatory.
mm,
Laws are not being obeyed because there are legal things that can be done about this, but no one is really respecting. And we see all of these racist ads, and people who need to be a certain nationality or other. And I'm going to have a bonus live, by the way, next week with Eliza Keaton, who, where we're going to. It's a very funny title. We're going to roast discriminatory ads that we
that
see.
would
So
be fun.
I would love to invite those who say, what is she talking about? Because I'm sure there must be someone thinking, well, I don't see this discrimination. I've been well accepted. you know just see the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring your awareness to that. So going to comments right now quickly.
Mm,
Anna Jovic says, it's a wonderful story of embracing one's own identity and non-nativeness. It seems we are reluctant to embrace it when we are younger. How can we help young teachers and save them from growing through the same cycle of self-doubt? Or is it something all young learners must go through before they reach a point where they are ready to embrace who they really are? An excellent question,
it
right?
is really good question. And I actually think um, it is a little bit of an age thing. We grow more confident with age, but I think these kind of conversations and uh, and looking at the world and what's happening everywhere and going, it's not actually really. You don't have to experience self-doubt necessarily. No, it's not even because you're young, um but sometimes, and as I was saying about the feeling imposter, it makes you, if you're fully passionate about this, it makes you work harder and and you'll get places if you work hard. That's the so I don't see it as a fully bad thing. But once you're fully passionate about it, you just will fight for it.
I'm smiling about it because you're obviously a very positive person and you see the silver lining. And I do too. I'm like, anything negative happens to me, I'm going to use it as an opportunity.
Oh yeah.
But if you think about it, from a neutral perspective, working harder is never better, right?
Yes, I know
Why?
what you mean.
Why must we work so much? Uh, and
Mm,
it's really, I mean, it deprives yourself. Like this has taken a lot of my time, and I have been working hard, and I still get hate comments like, "What are you
yeah.
saying? What are you doing?" And you are perpetuating, and I am like a little nobody, just making people a bit more aware of this. And I think, I also see it like you do, and then I ask myself, this shouldn't even be a thing. I
It
should
shouldn't be
not
a
be
thing.
working so hard.
Yeah,
prove a
true.
point. This should be like a common thing. How much talking does it require for people to like open their eyes and realize that you can't have these ads? You know, you've seen my presentation, you've seen the ads that are
Yeah.
present there. And this comes from a whole marketing team sitting behind and thinking, oh, we need to recruit native speaker teachers. Why? Because our students want it. I'm going to display another comment by Anna, who is very active on this, by the way, as well. She says students have prejudices about classes. They believe a class taught by a native is supposed to be a guarantee for their success in learning English. And this prejudice doesn't allow them to open themselves to the possibility of being taught by a non native teacher. They believe a non-native teacher can't give them such a guarantee, and that's where their complaints come from. But I feel like you answered this very well, Jan. You said, give them more time.
Give them a little bit of time.
I
Let
love
them
that.
experience it. Let them experience it. As I say, I'm not going to try force anyone. I'm not going to
No.
force anyone into doing anything that they don't want to do. And as I was saying, I have to consider agents. I have to consider the marketing and admissions team. I have to consider the students. And if they really don't want to experience something, I'm not going to force them, and I'm not going to fight it. That's not my job. But
Mm-hmm.
I will give them an opportunity to experience it. And it might change their mind. It might not, but it
It
might.
might. Yes, I think you have to be open to,
Mm,
shift your mentality a little bit. There's nothing that you can, get people to do without them wanting to. We can safely say that. So if
But
they are
also,
ready for it, then they have that extra thing. Yes, please.
absolutely. And we have, I actually don't know the percentage of native, non-native native teachers we have in the school at the moment, but it's a significant percentage. And and students talk, and they go, oh, I love my teacher, and she's from China.
Mm-hmm.
And and um, and so when they start talking like that, it just disarms some of these uh, beliefs or preconceptions that some other students might have, and go, oh my god. So we get emails then from students going, can I move to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that class or this other class? And it's not necessarily the native teachers, you know. It And I'm like, okay, this is
Yes.
wonderful, you know.
Yes. It is. It is. Give them that extra thing, and then students, like you said, they will talk. They will promote their own teacher, and
Yeah.
it's so much more than just a nationality and a passport and an accent. It just goes way above. And if you have that privilege of being in a role or in a position that you can actually educate or give that, plant that seed of doubt, to question these bigger things, please do so. Like, I know it takes that extra bit of maybe uncomfortable conversation or this kind, or you feel like a bit you're imposing yourself sometimes, but it's totally worth it, because it
Mm-mm.
saves other people and other teachers to have to always justify themselves before any class and say things like I would, oh, I'm Armenian, but I grew up, oh, but I lived here, oh, but I had this type of that shouldn't even be an issue. If you're in a classroom, you're a teacher, and no one should be questioning your presence there.
No,
So
no,
why
no.
are you here? How come you are here? And that, I think, is really, really powerful.
Mm.
So, is there anything else you want to add, Jan, before we say goodbye? This has been very, very enlightening. Thank you so
It's
much.
been so wonderful. I wanted to add that, about the concept of the accent, the native accent. I mean, two things. One is my husband's Irish, and oh my God, his accent is like
Say
he
it.
mumbles.
Say
Like
it.
I seriously wouldn't want to have him as a teacher. I mean, you know, I mean, I'm not going to. He has a mumble there, and I love it. But I do sometimes have to go after 13 years being together. I go, what again? And so it's not. It's An accent is nothing. It's nothing really. You know what is it, Nate? I did my driving test about a month ago, and as I was going into the um, I sat down in front of this man who was going to ask me questions, and then going into driving, and his accent again. I mean, I've been here so long, and I don't think I've been, uh, I don't know, what's the word, intimidated by an accent, for a really long time. But he had this very, very difficult accent to understand. And I go, I have to go driving with him, and he's going to have to give me instructions now, and I'll have to understand and follow through. And
you needed to chat with him a bit earlier
I
on
know,
to
and
get,
I did say, I'm sorry, but I'll have to, ask you to repeat it. And he was like, it's fine, fine. And it was all fine. But what I'm saying is, native accents, I
are
don't
not
know.
very intelligible, I would say.
No.
I love
So
it
it's,
when you go to these conferences or thing, you go to another country, right? And then suddenly this group of teachers with excellent English, they have to adapt their English so much, and even their listening skills to anyone, because the majority of the world speaks a global English, different English. There are Englishes, right? So I just love even the ordering a coffee becomes a what, and all your strategies come into play because you really do not understand each other, and you feel like, oh, I'm at fault here. I am here. I need something, right? And I can't really get my. I'm not even exaggerating because I've seen this happen. People ordering coffee and being like in a whole loss of, what did you say? What do you mean? And
yeah,
and it's so funny when on the other hand you see the professional English teacher trying to communicate effectively. I'm like, oh, this is great, because you have to make, as a teacher, your accent as intelligible as
exactly.
possible to your students.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
is very, very important, and native speaker accents often can be very tough to
Yeah,
understand.
absolutely.
Definitely.
But
Thanks so much. Yeah.
thank you so much, Mary. It's been so wonderful. I love having these conversations, and I love everything that you do. As I always say to you every time we meet, because I want to encourage you. It's an important conversation to have, and
Yes,
yeah, let's
whether on
continue.
screen or off screen, I thank you for doing what you do, because it's not only talking about it publicly live, but it's also what you say to your colleagues, your peers, the applicants, everyone, and you're doing an awesome job at it. So keep up the good fight, the good work, and hopefully we'll meet at another conference very soon.
I'm sure we
Okay,
will. I'm sure we will.
stay
Thank you
safe.
so much,
Bye,
Mary.
Jen. Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.